Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Artificial DM. We're going to go ahead and look at part 2 of TG's worst character thread. If you haven't seen part 1, go ahead and click on this video here. Let's go ahead and hear some of the cringe. I had to play with a furry. The DM allowed it. I win, lose. I once played a game with this girl who made an 8-foot-tall wolf woman who couldn't talk. We all treated her like the party pet dog. She eventually got pissed and quit. My first character. He was a 90-year-old elf whose entire village was killed. He was taken as a slave by orcs for the next 20 years. In those 20 years, he somehow learned how to use stealth and simple weapons. He didn't get a name from his family, so he named himself X. He escaped, and now wants revenge on those who killed his family. Guuurg. Half-orc barbarian with 3 intelligence, 20 strength, 3 charisma, 18 constitution, 7 wisdom, and 16 dexterity. Wandered into town. Adopted a halfling bard as his Guuurg mom. Could speak a total of 3 phrases, including his name, mom, and food. The bard started saying some long words to him, and Guuurg was instantly entranced and was convinced that he was Guurg's god. Guuurg mom. Guuurg had feats up the wazoo in relation to run, and was set up so that he could run about 650 feet in one turn. He wielded 2 greatswords, and occasionally a small villager, to fight anything and everything that might have or be food. His defining moment was the time that a horde of rats were attacking the group, who all ran up trees and were hiding. Guuurg was confused, and the halfling bard told him to get up a tree. He leapt up to a branch, and after 3 or 4 turns of trying, he found a branch that could support his weight. He then fell out, and landed on all the rats, spattering them all. Forgot to say, Guuurg also was used as a steed for the halfling bard, and had a lot of ranks in craft alcoholic beverage. When he got drunk, he went on a bloodlust, and ravaged a small village. He woke up in a pool of blood in the middle of the town's church, and decided to make an alcoholic beverage of the blood. It did not end well. 1/4 dragon, 1/4 celestial half-elf. Had a campaign where a friend of mine's girlfriend did an ultimate D&D Sacrilege. She played a drow, who was a cleric, who worshipped a sun god, or some shit, who was the sister of Drizzt Do'Urden. My friend insisted on being a mute elf ninja. His backstory consisted of childhood torture, having his vocal cords torn out, as well as being castrated. No family to speak of. His introduction was him stalking the party. He had a +20 hide bonus. He pulled it off pretty well. But when someone did finally spot him, the party flipped out and rolled initiative. They were being stalked by a ninja. What would you expect them to do? Apparently, said mute ninja had unique robes that made him instantly recognizable from the evil ninjas. I let it slide, and he joined the party. He then proceeded to turn tail and cower behind trees as soon as he took a single point of damage, claiming he was just playing like a tortured, cowardly, mute, chaotic, neutral ninja would. When he turned tail and let another character die in the next boss battle, our monk backhanded him across the face, taking him down to neg 4 in one shot. We stabilized him and left him in the dungeon to rot. Well, aside from my bitching about chaotic evil player characters, there were a couple PCs in a few sessions I was playing a character in, and you guessed it, both were chaotic neutral, that were completely flooping retarded and useless. They came in late in the game, so we had to meet them in a dungeon. They appeared to us, hanging upside down on the ceiling, cloaked in some black shit. We immediately started calling them bats. Well, one of the bats would not speak at all, except to his other bat wizard friend, and only in whispers. He also tried to force us to comply with whatever they wished, by threatening to drop another player character over a ledge with Earth Grab. He was some eldritch warlock shit or some other. All the original player characters, except one douchebag, of course, hated them, and tried our best to get them killed. Well, they eventually stopped coming after a few sessions, to our relief. A friend of mine pissed the DM off so much that the DM told him that his character's god was so dissatisfied with him that the god came down to personally off him. I once played with a Cleric of Pelor who was supposed to be all good and lawful, but was really a complete and utter ass. At one point, when we were playing the Sunless Citadel, he kicked one of the players on purpose down a spike pit, and got away with it, since he also managed to throw down and impale the daemon we were currently fighting. He then immediately said, "Damn! The mephit got in the way! That spike should go deeper than that!" to the impaled fighter. What languages do you know?
Well, I'm a fighter.
A fighter, yes, but you've got a 13 intelligence. What languages do you know?
I just speak Elvish. I don't need to know how to speak anything else.
Excuse me? You'd have to know Common at least.
I'm a fighter! Don't you get it? I spent all my life in the army. I don't need to know any other language but the language I took orders in.
I was in a game once where the Elven Ranger didn't feel like talking with the goblins, instead opting for killing them. The cleric asked what language the goblins spoke, and the DM said they'd speak Common. So we try to reason with them. The ranger then charges in and stabs one. The sword sage asked, "What the floop?" And the warblade asked, "What happened to our civilized discussion? Were you not listening?"
Oh, I was listening. I just had no idea what you were saying. I don't speak Common.
Turns out he had crossed Common off his character sheet. My rogue promptly popped out of the tree I was patrolling in and cleaved a goblin in half. The ranger just ran in and attacked. My rogue, being evil and bored, took that as a signal to hack them up with his mother floopin' axe. This promptly flooped over all possible negotiations. The worst thing is, he crossed out Elven too, since only 2 party members weren't elves, me and the wizard. So for the bit where he magically forgot Common, he forgot communications as a whole, since he refused to take any fancy languages like Abyssal or Draconic. He promptly remembered both languages when we started yelling at him, and it turns out, the DM had planned for other goblins to arrive to kill us on our way out. So by killing the goblins and moving on, we survived a brutal ambush. We promptly bought the ranger a magical gem, and the whole party got smashed, except the cleric, who waited outside the pub. If you only knew the rest of the campaign. To share some highlights, Bard once grappled an octopus. After battle, rolled Bardic Knowledge to find out if it was as good for the octopus as it was for him. Bard once used Perform, rolled a nat 20, so DM says the whole village is watching him. I pickpocket some audience members, only to fail and get a guard. The sword sage kills him and we save his body parts for later. At one point, we're fighting a hobgoblin. The party wants to start causing non-lethal damage so they can interrogate him. I wanted him dead, so just as they go to kill him, the entire party rolls trip checks. As I go down, I fire my crossbow anyway, only to miss and let it get away. I've shot the ranger, accidentally, a good dozen times or so. I re-rolled a Dread Necro, since the sword sage plays the rogue anyway. He's gotten every chest we found, broken open every door, by borrowing the ranger's shield and gem of hardness and smashing away, and once triggered a whole room of traps by getting assists from the rest of the party and ran around like an idiot, dodging them all. The cleric keeps me in line by threatening to turn all my undead parts if I turn on the party. When I bring out the dungeon's BBEG, a Hydra, the sword sage throws me on top and tells me to cleave off the heads. I didn't actually have the ability to cleave, or even the proficiency to wield an axe, so he gets pissy, and just weeaboo Mary Sue smashed the Hydra. I swear I'm going to kill the flooping guy soon. I figure I'll bribe the ranger and wizard, and tell the druid he either helps me, or I rape his forest. Then the warblade should side with us, out of fear of death. I think we can take the sword sage, cleric, and paladin. I was playing Big Eyes Small Mouth, which probably makes me a weeaboo right out of the gate, but whatever. One of my characters, for one night only, was a winged mute minotaur with a trident and a saxophone. He would fly around and try to stab shit, and whenever he wasn't in combat, he would just stand there and play the saxophone, no matter what anyone else was doing. I killed him with bees, and made a rule that, from now on, no one may ever play a mute character. This thread is reinforcing my conviction on that rule. To iterate with other chaotic stupid stories, I once had a player, Noel Warlock, that killed an innocent individual simply out of greed 3 times within the first 2 sessions. Word for word, this is what I told him upon his 3rd act of murder. Okay, your alignment shifts to chaotic evil. The 2 paladins traveling with you are no longer able to do so, and are obligated to smite you in the name of their lords. Cue the two aforementioned paladins rolling for initiative, one player of which did so without even blinking, which made me laugh after thinking about it. Joined also by the other good-aligned character, a dwarf druid, with the true neutral cleric sitting the fight out. They pretty much disemboweled the moron's character as he tried to bitch and moan about how I was being a dick. Taking him aside after the second session, I told him, without being an asshole, that if he wanted to continue playing in my game, that he'd have to not do stupid shit like that. Knowing fully well, I said the game was roleplay-centric. He wasn't a bad roleplayer, mind you. He just did stupid shit while roleplaying, and that I wasn't allowing any evil characters. He eventually, probably begrudgingly, rolled up a lawful neutral spell thief, and we never looked back on the incident again. Artificial here, just saying. Props to the DM. Communication. That would take care of 90% of horror stories. Since my group was full of pansy half-men who refused to play anything but elves, I decided I would play along. We started at first level, and I was a ranger. Every time I would miss, I would get pissed off, drop my bow, and charge in with my falchion, and start chopping away at anything that was moving. Amazingly, I survived until 4th level, where I multiclassed into a barbarian, and later to a reaping mauler. All I really did was floop up combat for everyone else, by being an inefficient wad of fury. My manliness did rub off on at least 2 of the players, because after we were all killed off, one rolled a dwarf fighter, and the other a half-orc barbarian. The last still stayed with his dual-wielding half-elf who left his family because they were all evil, and he wanted to be good. He also had a jaguar, named Gren. I once played in a homebrew game where a guy decided to make a robot character called Gunbot. He was basically a police bot whose player was a jackass that tried to kill people for the most minor law-breaking. Oh, and he used guns. After he left, our GM made an NPC called Robo Pistol, with guns for hands. That was pretty awesome though. A chain-smoking fighter. His only redeeming quality was that, when he was disarmed by the BBG, he used his last cigarette as an improvised weapon, and nailed him right in the eye. It gave him just enough time to throw a final punch before getting Vorpal sworded to death. Female Tiefling Paladin, General Angst. Used it in every setting. Resulted in me playing chaotic dickish. He even used it in an underwater campaign, which until he joined, I didn't know he was involved in, which would have caused even more conflict with my water spawn. I had a character named General Angst once. I didn't know what it meant at the time though, so I guess that's excusable. Plus, he didn't really have any rank in the military. He just claimed it, like I would imagine a squatter would claim a building that isn't really there, and no one would ever tell him otherwise. Not because they were afraid of him, it was closer to, this will take too long to explain. My friend attempted to make a half-elf, half-tree ranger. He spoke Common, Elven, and Treelish. We did a game of All Flesh Must Be Eaten, set in the Wild West. We had the classic. Dude out for unspecific revenge. Guy named him Clint Eastwood. Only female in the group, played a visiting English feminist. Battle cry was,
For estrogen and the queen!
I had a disillusioned priest, fighting zombies with a Winchester. It was floopin' metal. Then my friend decided to roll a gay altar boy, who dual-wielded candlesticks. Then a bunch more uninteresting characters. At some point after escaping the town, we were hoping to join up with the cavalry. The dialogue upon finding the trail was fantastic. You find the tracks of a large animal in the sand. No. Can't. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You find the Okay. You find the tracks of a large animal in the sand. Party falls silent, contemplating what to do next. What, like a whale? Oh my gosh. Face palms all around. So that concludes TG's Worst Character Thread, Part 2. Like I said at the beginning, if you haven't watched Part 1, click this link here. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Anyway, that will do it for today. And until next time, hope you feel inspired.